Hello, my spiritual friends, and welcome to this week's live stream. My name is Cynthia Clark. I'm your spiritual mentor, and I am here today to talk about original sin and how we can heal from that. This is generally a topic that I don't venture into. Anything that's religious in nature tends to be something I try to stay away from because I don't. I left formal religion quite a while ago. I grew up as a Mormon back in Utah, is where I grew up, and it was a big part of my life up until I left the church when I was 15, which is still fairly young. And then I ended up marrying a Catholic for 19 years, and I used to go to Catholic church with him. So I do have a big chunk of my life uh, involved in formal religion. But my path of spirituality has really taught me that there is so much more to this world than the doctrines, right? We can certainly learn from them, but ultimately, my channelings through my angels and spirit guides in the higher dimensional realms have taught me that we are divine beings. We are divine beings of light, and we have purpose, and we have dignity, and we don't need to be ashamed of who we are. We don't need to think of ourselves as something less than this divine energy embodied in a human form, because we go through the veil of amnesia before we come to this experience in this lifetime, and when we come to earth, we forget everything about who we are, and we spend the rest of our lives coming back to that and learning that again. So, anyway, one of my meditations that came up recently was about this concept around original sin. And my guides were pretty adamant that I share this and just help you to understand um, maybe a different perspective, or something that maybe it's embedded deep in your subconscious. Definitely the collective unconscious has this sense of guilt and shame, which is a low vibration, right? It's not where we wanna go in terms of our ascension and in terms of our spiritual growth. We need to come back into our empowerment, and we need to come back into that love vibration, that love energy, and that divine perfection. So, I wanna just, share a little bit about, like, the definitions of original sin and where it comes from. Um, and then we'll talk also a little bit about how it might be showing up in your hands, that you might be feeling this sense of guilt or shame. And then we're going to go through a process to heal it directly from my channeled messages from my spirit guides. So I hope that sounds interesting to you. Uh, Definitely. One that will probably create some controversy out there, but it is what it is, right? So, okay, and I'm not like a Bible quote person or anything like that. But I did look up in the dictionary. Okay, the New World Encyclopedia. Okay, so here's the definition of original sin. They say it is a Christian doctrine describing the first human act of disobedience, as well as the ongoing fallen state of humanity, bound in enduring irremediable alienation from God. Christian tradition regards original sin as the general lack of holiness into which human beings are born, distinct from any actual sins that a person may commit later. So, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, my parents would make me go to church, and they would say, you're a sinner, you have to go to church. And I didn't even really understand what that meant. It's like, well, I'm a good kid. Like, what did I do? Right? And so you're automatically taught to feel like you're bad. Um, and this is what I have an issue with. So, okay, so there was an author, her name was Danielle Schroyer, and she wrote a book called Original Blessing: Putting Sin in Its Rightful Place. So, according to her, she talks about how this concept of original sin is a theological construct. So, what that means is that it isn't explicitly laid out in the Christian scriptures, but rather it derives from quilting together various passages. And the first formulation of this doctrine was back around the fourth century, and it was with Augustine. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, so when we think about this concept of shame and guilt and that we're inherently bad, you know, how does that serve us moving forward, right? Um, it I look at it as just a way to control and to keep us in powerless mode. And as a spiritual being who is ascending into that love energy, we need to come back to our divine nature and our loving nature. And we need to basically release the shackles of these constructs that were placed on us. Okay. So, by the way, if you have uh, your fingerprint patterns, and if you've ever had them read, they do read out like a soul map. Okay, so your fingerprints form 5 months before you're born, and they are with you for the duration of your life. Okay, so when I read a set of fingerprints, I read, each one has significance, but then you put them all together and they can be read as your soul map. And your soul map can tell you what your life lesson is. Okay, so we all come in with a lesson that we're learning. Now, the number one life lesson out there, statistically speaking, has to do with victimhood and boundary violation, blocked passions. Along those lines is the most common life lesson. The second most common life lesson has to do with guilt and shame and personal integrity issues. So that lesson, those two lessons together, they sort of go together, but they're slightly different in how they show up. But if you have one of these life lessons, it can be a feeling of guilt or shame or this victim energy, and you don't even know where it's coming from. Okay, so this is something that we want to heal, because that's what we're doing as we go through our ascension process. Is we're healing from our lessons, we're learning our lessons, right? So I feel that this concept of original sin, if you're really holding on to it, and if you go into your life thinking that you're a sinner and you're bad and you're inherently bad, then that is not serving you in your life. Okay. So my spirit guides came to me and they wanted me to just share this, and I'll just share what they told me. So they said, it is important for you to help others to free themselves from the damaging bondage and shackles that have been firmly placed inside the realm of the subconscious minds of those who are ready to break free and recognize their true divine nature. So, if you feel like this is a concept that doesn't resonate with you and you're ready to be empowered back into your divine nature, then you're in the right place. that's that's what I'm all about. I want to empower you to know that you are divine, to know that you are a powerful being of light, and you are a spark of that perfection, which is you're not meant to be in suffering and stagnation and frustration. for your whole life. Like that's not what we're here for. So there's also a palmar print that can show up in the hands. So a palmar print is like a fingerprint pattern, but instead of being in the fingertips, it shows up in the palm surface. And there's one that is particularly challenging, and it's also fairly common to see in people's hands. It's called, we just nickname it the ego loop, but it represents somebody who will be extra hard on themselves. They get stuck in like this ego trapping, and they are not able to really recognize their divine self very easily. So they're really working on this on a soul level, because if it's a print, remember, it's coming in 5 months before birth, and it's with you your whole life. So it's something you got it. It's there for a reason, and it's there to help you to heal, right? So the ego loop, if you have it, it will look like a loop pattern. Here, let me just sort of draw it out here for you. And if you're just listening, I will describe it. But it's a loop. So it's got sort of these little circle, like a half circle, okay, pattern. And it's going to be located right underneath your Apollo finger, which is your ring finger. Okay. So your ring finger is how you show yourself to the world. It's your creativity. It's also your talent finger. Apollo is the god of the sun, representing, that beautiful sun radiance that shines out to the world. Okay, so if you have a loop and it's right underneath this finger, that would be the ego loop. Okay, so there's other loops that can show up, and they're not directly under this finger. They might show up just a little bit off, like in between the fingers. That's a different loop. We call that one the loop of productivity, or over here underneath, closer to the little finger, Mercury, that's we call that the loop of humor, and that represents more of a lighthearted energy. So we're talking about the one that might show up right underneath that Apollo finger. And it could be on either hand, by the way. It doesn't matter. It could show up on one or both hands, but it's a fairly common marker. So anyway, that's something to check for if you have that marker. So, by the way, if you missed last week's live stream, we did talk about how to call in the Pleiadians. So, definitely check that episode out in case you missed it. The Pleiadians are a benevolent extraterrestrial group, and I've been channeling them for a little while now. And they come in and they assist me with my multidimensional manifesting. And they're excellent healers too, so they can help us with our overall soul ascension, is what they're here for. And next week, we will be looking at another sacred text called the Emerald Tablet, and we'll be looking at some secrets of manifesting by looking at that ancient text. So I hope you can join me every week. Thursdays, this is when I like to come out and see you in person. So, all right, so let's dive right into healing this original sin, shall we? So my spirit guides gave me an invocation to say to your heart, okay, because we want to tap into that heart energy. And we want to get rid of these shackles, is how they refer to it. So they said part of soul training is recognizing these shackles. So we do have to look at ourselves, and we have to look at our patterns that show up in our lives. And we have to go, wow, why do I feel like this? Why do I feel this like ickiness? Okay. So when you can start to identify what that looks like and where it's coming from, then you can start to heal it. Okay. So they told me that this original sin concept is a very, it's a very important one to heal. So, and they said this, anything that keeps you feeling powerless, unworthy, guilty, and in sorrow should be questioned. Okay, so yeah, if this is the opposite of our love vibration, it's the opposite of our moving into the higher dimensional realms, because you should feel every day, you should feel pretty good about who you are and what you're about. And you shouldn't go around feeling guilty and shameful and insignificant, because that's not what you really are. Okay, so all right, so uh, let's see, without knowing how to heal it, though, the challenge is that it'll just perpetuate, because our subconscious mind is so powerful, right? We build up our subconscious beliefs, and they get set really firmly by the time we're about 5 or 6 years old. So we have these programs that are running in place in the background, and we don't even realize or recognize that these patterns are happening. And so if you started going to church at a very young age, like I did, and they were telling you how bad you were right from the beginning, that's going to create some bad programming for you later on. So we want to come back to our divine nature and recognize our power. Okay, so this is the invocation. I'm going to take you through this, and what I would like for you to do is place your hands. Okay, we have a point of power in our hands right here. The middle part of the palm, we call this the point of change. Okay, so by the way, let's just start out by massaging that point. So take your hand, go, put your nail right on that middle part of your palm, and let's just activate our change. Okay. So you can say to yourself, I'm activating change right now within me. I am opening myself up to change. I am getting ready to heal original sin, um, belief programming inside of me. Okay. So just massage that part of your palm just to like wake it up. Okay. Next, I want you to just relax, take a deep breath, and we're going to go ahead and just put our those 2 points, okay? Line them up, one on top of the other on your hands, and place that on your heart. Okay? So because we want to tap into that love energy, that divine energy that is in you already, okay? So I would like for you to either say this out loud after I speak it, or you can just think it if you're not in a position where you can say something out loud. Okay. So I was, am, and will always be a perfect reflection of divine perfection. I release any and all fragmentation of beliefs, validation, and assumption that original sin is part of my makeup. I let go and admonish any and all beliefs, validation, and assumption that I am anything less than a spark of divine essence here in human form to express a unique and individual experience on behalf of the One, for the benefit of the One, and for my own spiritual growth as an extension of this one divine energy. I claim my purity, my worthiness, my dignity, and my sovereignty to be free, to express myself as I see fit, to follow my own path of light in knowingness that I am and always will be an eternal spark of divine light. Thank you, and so it is. All right, and I want you just to inhale that all in. Exhale out any stress that isn't in alignment with you anymore. Hmm. How does that feel? Hopefully, it feels really good. And then, as you're holding this onto your heart, you're holding this change within your heart. What you're doing is you're tapping into that divine essence of you, that divine cosmic heart energy that is you and all around you. So take that in, breathe that in, know that it's here for you. Okay, so you can go ahead and just take your hands off your heart and notice how you feel, right? Notice how just saying those words of power and claiming the divine energy within yourself. Notice how that feels. And I want you to go through the rest of today noticing how that feels. And I definitely recommend reviewing that invocation again if you feel like this is really something that you struggle with. You might want to go through it a few times until it really sinks in. But now that you have the invocation from my directly from my spirit guide, so I channel messages in meditation and I call in the higher dimensional realms and I receive information from them to assist you. And what this does is this will help you in your manifestations. It will help you in creating a life of abundance and joy and peace. And that is what I wish for you and what is my intention for you. So, if you're interested in learning more about how to access your divine nature and how to really claim a life of abundance, because that is, anything less is just not acceptable, in my opinion. So, if you want to live your best life, if you want to level up wherever you are in your life and you want to really claim your power and claim your divine birthright of your purpose and your passion, and to really make a difference in this world, we need to be in our power, not in our disempowered self. Then I recommend going to my website, ascension17.com, and take my free training to get you on the path of abundance. So, like I said, next week we're going to be talking about the Emerald Tablet and the ancient text that it has to share. And we'll be doing some more talk about manifesting. So until next week, I wish you infinite abundance. And thank you so much for being you and remembering that you are infinite abundance. Take care.